Hey, our regular Dark Soul 9669 super saying, have you and Matt ever dug into peak difficulty from a psychological angle? When do diminishing returns start for satisfaction? Would heroic 1025 be satisfying enough? Not having the sort of psychology of there being more. So basically, I think what you're asking is, where are the diminishing returns with adding more and more difficulty levels into your game? You know, this is an interesting one because I did catch some of Preach's response to our Mythic video, and I think definitely one thing that Mike's response did highlight that I really, in hindsight, should have included more in the video. Not really in essence, because I don't think Mike didn't see the value in going over the numbers. I do disagree with that. I do think the numbers are interesting to see, because at the very least, they can tell us overall rates of drop-off, overall rates of retention. If you have a situation where, you know, numbers stay flat or even go up from tier to tier in an unpopular expansion, that even tells you that a future tier is doing well. I mean, perhaps Nyloth even teaches us that. But I really should have done a disclaimer that just said, hey, by the way... Oh, by the way, another by the way. Is this one of Rathian's? Yeah, this is Rathian's agents. That's another cool thing. Rathian's agents are back. But I should have put a disclaimer in that video saying, hey, obviously less people are playing the game, so we would expect these numbers to be lower. But I think what probably would have maybe made sense of, or at least explained some of what Mike, I guess, like, I don't want to say took issue with. That's too strong of a word. It would be to say, we wanted to find the numbers that scared Blizzard. Basically. And I think that's what we did. That was, like, the actual true objective of that video was to work out what gave Blizzard the willies. And I think we essentially did do that. So to your question then, and this is kind of why I brought up the Preach thing. So, again, I probably should have tried to not... Or maybe I should have made it clear that this little point of the video was purely personal preference, but I was talking about 10-man, what would now be called 10-man Mythic, but back in the day was called 10-man Heroic. Now, the thing you got to remember, me and Preach have got radically different perspectives. At no point have I ever even wanted to be a competitive World of Warcraft player. I wanted to be good within my own happy little corner, that's it. So whenever I was talking about the problem of, you know, 20-man Mythic, it was purely from that perspective. So the point I made in the video, and I think he said, okay, well, don't be disingenuous, this was not like a massive thing in the community. But I think it could have been for a lot of social guilds who maybe were like 2-night-a-week raiders, who, you know, they wanted to be good, but by no means did they want to be competitive, and that's where I would have fallen into. Where I remember in Mists of Pandaria especially, you know, we were 10-man raiding, and I mean, Mike, you know, he talked about how 10-man would be busted. Yo, dude, I remember doing Council in patch 5.2, right? The Council of all the troll boys before you actually make it into the, like, the Thunder King, like the, you know, the big area of his. It was so much harder in 10-man. Totally. Way harder in 10-man. And we didn't mind that, though. But the benefit of the way that those difficulties worked is that whenever we killed Lei Shen, our exact same comp could then go and do Jinrock on Heroic difficulty, which would be the equivalent of Mythic today. And that meant that we could access the highest tier of difficulty in World of Warcraft at the time for our group size without having to change the social structure of our guild. So I guess when, you know, somebody says, oh, come on, just get 20 friends, just get 20 people to raid with, I prefer smaller. And indeed, loads of WoW people, I think Mike included actually, do prefer maybe more of a 10-man size to 20. And it's purely just that. To me, 20 is too much noise, it's too much. So to be honest with you, for the diminishing returns angle there, I don't think there is much. I'm happy for Rock Hard. I'm happy to go up to, you know, an FF14 Ultimate tier of something. Now, if it was an FF14 Ultimate, it would probably have to have a different format to Mythic in the game right now. But no, for me, I don't care the highest upper end of difficulty. I think that those things can be awesome challenges. You know, they're like a Halo product. They're like the Mac Pro. You know the way, like, Apple could do the Mac Pro, and it looks like a fucking weird cheese grater spaceship, and it sits there at the top of the lineup. You know, it's what's called a Halo product. Yes, it's a legitimate use case for some people. But other than that, it's a Halo product. And I think having a Halo product within your raid structure is a pretty valid thing to do if you want. it kind of says, hey, we mean business. This content means business. Look at these, you know, crazy peaks that our game can go to. So I'm happy for stuff to be rock hard. I don't think there's much of a diminishing return. I think perhaps it just depends on what sort of thing you are very much asking your players to do. And when you tie gearing into that, then to some players it's like, okay, well, you're asking me to do this for that gear, in which case perhaps the gear reward and that part of the loop, because I know a lot of people in Mythic, they are thankfully intrinsically motivated to do that, which means loot shouldn't be as much of a factor for them. But you know, if you go too much more hard, like an FF14 Ultimate situation, then perhaps it just does need to be a bit more there for the prestige of the whole endeavor. The Jamsler dropped a $10 super save. Might sound like a crazy idea, but I'd love it if they could scale things to group size. Wouldn't it be nice to run Mythic raids with your Mythic Plus group? I think 10 to 20 is a lot of asking. So this is a really tricky one. I mean, already a lot of Mythic mechanics, they just flat out would not work with a 5-player group. And a lot of them wouldn't even work with a 10-player group, which is why the only way that you could do a change to the Mythic rating system would be from expansion to expansion, because that's when you have an opportunity to truly say, hey, different approach, this is how we're doing it now. And then they could work that into their designs so that their designs can work at those 2 different player numbers. Why am I sitting here using single target? I'm a fucking dragon that can breathe fire. And especially, see Eternity Surge, like, you know, bam! Just does so much damage. So, look, I'll say to you, I don't think that's possible with Mythic. You know, with a Mythic dungeon group. But I guess what I will say is, more interesting challenges for 5-player groups to overcome that are not a dungeon with a time trial, that would be great, wouldn't it? You know, can they take the idea of, say, a trial in Final Fantasy XIV and basically make a trial that is designed for, oh my god. Ugh. Make a trial that is designed for a, like a Mythic raid group. Or, sorry, a Mythic dungeon group. That would be pretty different. Is this, I think this is kind of in progress. So, there's a lot of potential there. One thing that Blizzard is adding into the game, actually, and I think there'll be a lot of excitement over this one. We are getting a Mage Tower-like feature in this expansion. I think that's pretty damn cool. It's not going to be at launch, but it's something they're very much considering for patch content. So, I mean, even if there was like a multiplayer challenge for that, I just think that would be awesome. More ways for groups of players to play with each other, because sometimes your 5-man group, you know, it's you and 5 of your friends, and you guys may really want to play World of Warcraft together, but maybe you don't feel like a Mythic dungeon. It would be good if the game had other things for you to do. Thoughts on hard mode Mythic 20-man only content that drives the highest end guilds, but then a flex Mythic mode that scales between 10 and 20. See, the problem there is whenever you put that scaling in, there will always be breakpoints, right? Where, you know, maybe... and it was like this whenever Flex was added to World of Warcraft, and I was there when that happened in patch 5.4. And you just end up with this funny issue where maybe 14 players is the optimal. And that's a real design challenge to overcome. Now, you see, it's weird because... like, I know Preach's angle is to make Heroic harder. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that, just because I'm trying to think about what the average player is actually like at the game. And Heroic is definitely not for the average player, but I'm not sure, basically. I don't know if Heroic should be harder. But you don't want a situation where, you know, you right-click and you go to difficulty modes, and we have got Normal, Heroic, Mythic, Ultimate. And maybe Ultimate is the mode that is designed for Scribed and Max to duke it out. I shouldn't just say the 2 of those. There's incredible guilds incredible guilds in China and other regions who are doing, you know, incredibly well in these races. But in a way, it's like if you could just put the Race to World First content away in its fucking box and then design that to be perfect for those players, and then maybe you had something that was harder than Heroic, but not quite Mythic, that still was a part of the game's loot loop, but then like you're getting into so many difficulty levels that, I mean, they have to tune all of those fights, have the scaling work for all the different difficulty modes, and oh boy, you know, that would really be creating design challenges for them. But I mean, I still look at what you said, and I guess further to what you were saying earlier today's stream, that's the feeling that you've got. How can we address that feeling through the game's design? Is there a more subtle way to do it that doesn't involve overhauling, core systems? I guess that's the question. Kind of hard to know.